Between the 23rd and 26th of May 2019, I was a guest of the Austrian Wine Marketing Board at their Wine Summit program, which takes place every 2 years. What follows in this series is in-depth coverage of the journey along the Danube stream of the summit. This features a mixture of presentations from members of the Austrian Wine Marketing Board and a combination of presentations and tours of participating wineries. If you've ever wanted to increase your knowledge of Austrian wine, this is the place to be. And do be sure to subscribe to the podcast at interpretingwine.com/listen so that you're alerted when new episodes go live. Today's episode of the Austrian Wine Summit series features a visit to the Lenz Moser Winery. This has two distinct parts, kicking off first with Peter Moser giving us the origin story of the estate, before we head through to a tasting of 3 carefully selected wines. This part again includes Q&A, which touches on production style and opinions about the wines. Enjoy!
First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Peter Moser. I'm the editor-in-chief of Falstaff magazine, which is the leading wine magazine, wine and gourmet magazine in the German-speaking market, so in Austria, Switzerland, and Germany. And I'm also the editor of the Ultimate Austrian Wine Guide, a little guide annual guide on the Austrian wine. Maybe you already got a copy of it. If not so, you will get it in the next days. And there's a good reason that it's me who was asked to do a little historic little information for you. My name is Moser. Well, my great-great-great-grandfather bought this cellar here in 1849. So I think the Austrian Wine Marketing Board thought that it's a good idea to invite me to talk about this cellar in a way. But I'm not linked in the wine production or anything like this. I'm a wine critic, so there's only a family link. The Lenz Moser cellar, as it's called today, is really one of the oldest in the region, that's for sure. If you saw the dates, which states it was built about the year 950, which means it could be older than 1,000 years. Could be right or not, we don't know. This is a date which is not really scientifically proven. But what we know is that the oldest vineyards are mentioned in a record from 940. So we know that in the days before the year of 1000, there was wine culture here in the region, and especially also on this place. The village Rohrendorf, a part of it, was first mentioned in the year 1004. And first records who could be linked with this special cellar date from the year 1040. It was a German emperor, Henry III, who donated estate very close from here, the Weidling estate, to the monks of a monastery in Bavaria, which is about 400 kilometers up the Danube from here. This estate was donated for them to produce wine which they need for the Mass, for the liturgy. And this Weidling estate, it's about 2 kilometers from here, was the seat of the administration of this kind of estate. So as they were producing wine, they owned vineyards, but there should be a cellar existing anywhere around. And it's quite likely that this was the place, because we are close to the Danube River, and there was always a threat of floods. So in the lower part of the village, there wouldn't be cellars because they would be threatened by the water. And every year in spring, there was high water coming in, so it's likely to be a cellar more close to the hill, and then higher elevation. We know that this monastery, they got the permission from the King of Bohemia to transport wine from here up the Danube River. without paying any duties. It was, in these days, and we are talking about a record from the year 1252, so it's 800 years ago, that there was being asked for duty on every, bigger city, every bridge, wherever they passed with their load, they had to pay something. And so the king said, okay, the monks get an exemption, so they don't have to pay because they are bringing their own wine from here to their monastery. They used it, but also sold it, of course, so it was a major income for them. So this monastery, Ebersberg, was the owner until the monastery was closed in 1595. So they owned the place for more than 500 years. After that, it was the monks from the Jesuits college, first the ones from Munich in Bavaria, but then they sold the estate and the cellar to their colleagues from the college of Krems, which is quite close from here. That's the next bigger town, where the Jesuits also had a college. And there we know that, for instance, they harvested here in the year 1680 1,400 eimer of wine. This barrel here contains 1,000 eimer. An eimer is a measure which is about 56.6 liters. So we are talking about a harvest of 80,000 liters if they got this 1,400 eimers. When the Jesuit order was dissolved in 1737, the cellars and the vineyards were nationalized for a while and then sold to a private family in 1819, the family Visgrill. Not important in connection to wine, but some music experts may have heard about this name because they were the owners of a estate quite close in Kneixendorf, where the famous composer Ludwig van Beethoven lived in his last days before he returned to Vienna in 1827, where he died. So he was composing the famous 9th Symphony in the house of the Visgrill family, quite close, which were owners of the cellar in these days. Well, after that, the Visgrill family resold the estate in the cellar to the Melk Monastery, a very famous monastery on the very beginning of the Wachau region. Not the one you can see on the other side of the Danube here, it's Göttwerk, but it's the beginning, and the other is, you can say it's the doors, the two monasteries to the Wachau region. And some years later, in 1894, my great-great-great-grandfather, Anton Moser, bought estate and cellar. The background is that we had the revolutionary year of 1848, and this was the first moment for a lot of Austrian farmers to buy their own land, because most of them were working in a lease for other owners, for aristocrats, for the church and so on. So it was not likely that people owned their own land until 1849. And then they got the possibility to do so. And my family, they were working as administrators for this estate, for the owners. And then they could take over and, they became owner of the then called Lenz Moser cellar. Before it was the Jesuit cellar. So another 3 generations later, in the year 1929, it was Lorenz Moser III. He was called Lenz Moser. It was his own choice to take Lenz instead of Lorenz, who founded more or less the company, the wine company Lenz Moser. First, he was in the nursery business. He started as a very young man, with 24 years old, to build up a wine nursery. And in a very short time, after less than 10 years, he became the biggest wine nursery in Austria, selling more than 1.5 wines a year. That was in the 30s, before the Second World War broke out. Due to a very special law in 1936, his wine nursery closely collapsed because it was forbidden then to plant hybrids or American varieties and so on. And as he was selling his wines basically to private people, that they could grow fruits to eat them, not to make wine out of them, his business went down, and he decided more to concentrate on the wine production, to produce quality wine by himself. And up in the 30s, he already collected a surface of 37 hectares. And from the very beginning, he was thinking about a new system of wine training. And that ended up in the, nowadays, in Austria, famous Lenz Moser high culture wine training system. In the 50s, there were about, well, I know that in the year 1938, it was about 15 hectares which were trained like this. The rest of the Austrian vineyards were all traded in the very old system. You got one stick of wood and the wine was on it. And nowadays, 90.999% of the Austrian wine vineyards are done in the Lenz Moser way, which has lots of advantages because you don't need that much people. You can work mechanical and all these things which were unthinkable in the 20s and 30s. And it was not so easy to convince the farmers to start with this new way to produce. But after the Second World War, it was a little bit easier because they saw there were less people to work the vineyards, of course, due to the war. And on the other hand, it was easier to get into the mechanication because there were some more tools to do so. Even you needed a lot of wires for the system, and wire was cheap then because it was a mass product. In the 20s and 30s it was quite expensive, so not everybody could afford to do so. And the second thing was that along with this invention of this new revolutionary system, also varieties, especially the Grüner Veltliner, became popular. Grüner Veltliner was there before, of course, but it was one of many others, many varieties. But it worked that well with this kind of Lenz Moser high culture that everybody, especially in Lower Austria, moved to this variety. You get top quality and good quantity, and that was very convincing argument for every farmer, sure, no? And that's the reason that nowadays Grüner Veltliner is by far the most important variety in the country, and that's more or less. Well, we have to thank the later Professor Dr. Lenz Moser, because he became some degrees in honor for his work. Well, he invented that. So that was a very brief overlook. I hope that our big book, where I wrote a chapter on Professor Lenz Moser, will be translated into English soon, then you can read it there in all details and with some interesting photos and so on. And I wish you a very good continuing your trip throughout Austria, now an interesting tasting of the Lenz Moser wine. Thank you.
Thank you. Just some words to the winery. You have the information in your... no problem. Here inside, Lenz Moser is the biggest winery in Austria. At all, we process about 2,200 hectares. We have contract with vintners and we just for rinsing. Sorry. And we also, Lenz Moser also belongs to estates. So it was one estate in the north of Austria. We have a wine in the tasting of it, and also the sparkling is from this estate. It's 50 hectares. It's in the north of Austria near the Czech border. And the second estate is Klosterkeller Siegendorf. It's in the Burgenland area. It's about 25 hectares. It's near the capital of Burgenland, Eisenstadt. And these two estates belongs to Lenz Moser, and the grapes come to the winery. Export is about 25%. The main destinative countries is Germany, Netherlands, Russia, USA, Scandinavian. That's the main destinations where our export is. We start with the first wine. It's Grüner Veltliner, you know, the most important variety in Austria. Also the most important variety for Lenz Moser. The first wine is from the region around the winery. Here we have about 150 vintners, and they bring us the grapes. We have contracts with them. Grüner Veltliner, here's the goal is this is harvest 2018. It's a new Grüner Veltliner. The goal is the fresh, spicy, fruity wine. We have 12.5 alcohol and 5.5 acidity. Harvest 2018 was a very hot harvest in Austria. It was crazy. We had the harvest wasn't in the autumn. It was in summer. We started at 21 August, and it was very important the cooling systems. We are good in cooling the grapes. We cool them the must, and to protect the fruit and to get a fruity, spicy Grüner Veltliner. Also, the goal is not too much alcohol for easy drinking. Yeah.
Usually, when we taste Grüner Veltliner, there's sometimes a bit of like the slightly spiciness of the bitter end. Mm-hmm. But this one, kind of like not quite clear on that part. Was there something that you do to make that part to be more easier to approach, or like usually that kind of like bitterness at the end on GV, a lot of them, but this one I didn't taste it.
There's no bitterness.
No bitterness. Okay.
Did you understand? Do you want me to say something?
Yeah.
Or do you,
No.
I think it's a little bit. You can correct me because you are, after all, the enologue. It's a little bit depending on where the grape grows. In this area where we are, we don't really have the spiciness that you have in the more eastern part. Mm-hmm. True.
It's also the harvest. It was a very, very hot harvest, so the acidity is down. We are about 5.5 acidity, and the bitterness is coming. It's also from the harvest. It was a very hot year, and so it's sometimes trouble to have the sun.
Ripeness?
Yeah, the skin of the grapes. There you have bitterness from the sun. Yeah, and that you had to work after crushing. You work very quick. We cool down. The grapes come in, and we cool it directly after crushing. Mm-hmm. We have a big cooling machine, and we can cool it, and that's very good to protect the freshness and the fruit.
So you don't get that kind of like.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yesterday we tried a lot of Veltliner from Trisonto.
Yes.
And there's some vintages of 2018 as well. Mm-hmm. So most of the Veltliner we tried from this place, it have this like you are biting the green grapes. Mm-hmm. And that kind of white peppery finish. That's the kind of spicy. Mm-hmm. But we didn't feel from your wine.
No.
So that's the question. Is this the climate difference or this winemaker's influence?
I think both. It's the region and our influence.
So here is warmer than.
No. But it's very important. Very important is the microclimate. Is the soil. It's you can make different wines from here and over the hill over there.
Okay.
It's very different.
So where are these grapes come from? What type of soil?
It's loess sand, loess. Yes, it's mainly from the hill over there, you see. We see it because we have Grüner Veltliner from each region. We have from here, our estate is in the north of Austria. We have vintners in Weinviertel. We have Grüner Veltliner in Burgenland area, and it's very different. The region is very different, but it's also different. This place and over there on the mountain, it's the microclimate is very important, but also the vinification. When you get the grapes and work very reductive, or you add O2 to the must, or you make maceration on skins, or what else? That's the different. That's the different styles too.
So the creaminess from the texture of the wine, it actually comes from the soil, from the Lotus.
Yeah.
That's what you're like.
Not generally we make maceration, just some parts. The second wine is a different variety. It's coming from the other estate, belongs to Lenz Moser. It's Klosterkeller Siegendorf. This region is Burgenland area. It's in the east of Austria. And the variety is not so important for Austria than Grüner Veltliner. It's Pinot Blanc. And here we have a vineyard with 25 hectares, and a part of it is Pinot Blanc. The grapes come also to the winery per truck, and the goal is here to make a more bodied wine. We leave it long on the lees. This is harvest 17. The goal is also smooth, and especially on this wine, as we have about 5% barrel aging. We just have in the winery two white wine with some percent of barrel aging, and this is one of it. It's also just for smoothness, for influence the tasting. This wine is also not to drink young. It's here we start with harvest 2017 in selling. Harvest 2018 will come in a year. On lease, we leave it about 6 to 8 weeks. We leave it on lease without SO2, stir up to get more influence from the yeast. But also 12.5 alcohol, because we want to have also here not too much alcohol. We have a lot of different wines. That's just 3 wines from our portfolio. We have different styles of Grüner Veltliner. We also have Chardonnay. We have rosé wine. We have Merlot. We have Cabernet. We have just 1 hour, so we have 3 wines: 1 Grüner Veltliner, 1 Pinot Blanc, and the third wine is one of our top red wine, where we try to make international red wine. But we also have St. Laurent, we also have Zweigelt, the most important variety in Austria. But we just have 3 wines for you to see what Lenz Moser can make. Most of our wines is Cuvée, that's in Austria. Just natural cork at our top red wines, sparkling, and our sweet wines. Yes, this red wine is coming from the Malteser Ritterorden, from the estate in the north of Austria, harvest 2016. Here we have this Cuvée, the Cuvée is Cabernet Sauvignon Merlot, it's the French blending. Here we reduce very strong in the vineyard. Norbert did it. I think about 5,000 kilo per hectare.
It's the maximum. When it's a good year, we have about 5,000 kilo. When it's a bad year, it's not too good, then we have about 3,000 kilos per hectare only. 16 was the last 2 years was very, very good for the red wine, because Mailberg, where the vineyards are, is a very special region, and this is also very good for red wines. It's very warm, and so they can do this grapes, Cabernet and Merlot, also in this region.
The estate is situated in a valley with about 400 hectares. 400 hectares, and it's a beautiful microclimate in this valley. And our estate is 50 hectares of it. And here we can make fruity Grüner Veltliner as well as reds like this. To finish it, we have 3 to 5,000 kilo per hectare, full ripe. This wine is just in good years. We do it just in good years. We ferment it on skins. This year, I think 5 to 6 weeks fermentation on the skins. Then the free run must go directly in 100% new barrel, French barrel. And here we make the malolactic. And then we make the aging about 15 to 18 months. The goal is a full-bodied red wine with about 14 alcohol. That's not so easy drinking wine. It's for a meal and for a good meal. The goal is for this tasting to show you the different style of wines we have, from easy drinking to a red with 14 alcohol, 100% new barrel. We use French barrel, Allier region, and we have about 4 or 5 different delivers. We taste every barrel separately, then we see which barrel is better with the same wine, and the next year we take the better deliver. We take more barrels. So we saw in the past that also the barrel have differences in quality. So we taste every barrel blind and say this barrel is better. Next year we have more of these barrels, and that we make every year.
What is the size of the barrel?
220 liters. 220, yeah, 25 direct. Yeah. I think also she told me that's not too much oak for new oak. We just have 100% new barrel. In the winery, I think 1978, the winery starts with barrel aging with barrique, and at the beginning they make a lot of mistakes. But the goal is to put in a barrique just very thick wines. When you give a small wine or a thin wine in a barrel, you have a lot of wood, but no wine. So when you have a new barrel, you need really a full ripe Cabernet or full ripe Merlot. And so when we have a year, it's not possible to have a wine like that is full ripe. Then we do it not in a new barrel.
And also the tannin texture is really well managed.
Yes. It's also the goal not to have too much tannins. Smooth is our goal. A special wish was to taste the second top reds. You have it not on the list. It's from the other estate in Burgenland area. We also have a red Cuvée, harvest 2016. Here we have Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc. The goal is the same that in Lower Austria, full ripe grapes. Also 5 to 6 weeks on the skins. The same barrel aging, new barrel. It's different region, different variety. We here have as partner not the Merlot, here we have the partner the Cabernet Franc to the Cabernet Sauvignon. And a little bit different at the barrels. Here we have a little bit American oak, about 10% American oak. So time is over, I think. You have your next visiting. Thank you very much for your interesting. I hope you're happy with us. Thank you.
A huge thank you to everybody at Lenz Moser for the visit. As you heard, great to get a deep dive into one of the producers. You can, of course, find details of all of the wines that we tried in the full Down the Danube program, which I've included the link for below. Do, of course, be sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening. Or if you need the subscribe links, just head to interpretingwine.com/listen. And of course, while you're at it, do please follow along with me on social media, where I'm at Interpreting Wine on Instagram and Facebook, at Wine Podcast on Twitter, and email hello@interpretingwine.com. Next up on the Austrian Wine Summit series in episode 360, Join us as we take a deep dive into the region of Kremstal. See you then.